Hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast, The Great Unknown, hosted by Antaha. We are an organization that helps people along their personal and spiritual journeys of transformation and growth. My name is Betty. I'm the head of experiences and collaborations. And we have here our founder and leader, Sitender Sarawat.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Betty.
So we are starting off this episode. Well, actually, let me just give you a little introduction as to why we are doing this podcast, The Great Unknown. We are in a time that navigating through life has proposed quite a few challenges. And either emotionally, mentally, spiritually, we are quite lost. And this is why we've decided on the name The Great Unknown, that navigating this journey through life can be quite challenging. There's a lot of uncertainty, and perhaps we've also lost a lot of purpose in our life. So we will be exploring topics to address some of the common issues that we see. And today's episode, we will be exploring loneliness. And we'll be starting off with, why is there a loneliness epidemic?
Well, we're starting off a very big question, I guess.
Yes, we are.
And I guess the title "Great Unknown" does hint a little bit about what is happening in the world around. The word unknown should imply that people feel lost and confused, but don't know why, don't know what's missing. What is it that is driving them towards this feeling of having a void inside, despite having money and good careers and so much. To answer your question, why do we have an epidemic? Well, this is not something new to humanity. Loneliness is not new to humanity. It has been there. And it's not something that would just come on the surface overnight. It's not. A lot has developed in the past at least 2 or 3 decades, particularly after COVID, and since the world has become much more, I would say, connected, in the sense that technology has made everything so convenient to speak to other people or to learn what's happening in another corner of the world. But that also, well, it's a gift to humanity for sure, but it is also a challenge. It brought challenges that we didn't see immediately, which we're beginning to see now. For example, we are experiencing loneliness. Why? Because a major portion of our lives, which was earlier devoted to social connections and exploring things in the world, reading books or having lunches together, doing community meetups, all of that has been replaced by virtual connections, virtual friends, and so much. Culture also has a lot to do with this. But I think what COVID did was it just exposed everything. It just, flared everything, I guess, multiple times, whatever people were going through. It's actually interesting because we started something called Hopeline during COVID. And it was just a new project that we thought, okay, we see that people are experiencing loneliness, people are just confined in their homes, and let's see if we can do something. So we started this platform called Hopeline, and the idea was just to give people a platform to speak and connect, and they could stay anonymous. Thousands of people called. Actually, 5,000 people called right in the first month, and this was
Wow.
So COVID broke out in March. This was in October. So even that time, and this was first wave, and people, the kind of stories they shared. For example, I never thought I was surviving of people's energy around me. I was not sure. I now feel like everything has been stripped off me and I don't know what to do. So I guess I don't think there's one reason. I don't think it's an overnight change, but it is there very prominently. And I think I see that when I have conversations with people, teach, and in multiple spaces, that even though this is not a priority, but for a lot of governments, some countries have ministers, but people are desperate. People are desperate to speak with, just have a conversation. And this is of loneliness is of different kinds in different places, different walks of lives. So I guess it's much more profound than we think and realize.
Yes. Do you believe that something like a spiritual disconnection is contributing to loneliness?
Well, I guess this is interesting question because my work is focused on spiritual guidance. We've seen a big wave of apps, wellness apps and digital resources, for example, guided practices and meditation apps and so much. And then we saw something like a rise in AI bots, like bots that were meant to replace human emotion, human support, actually. Um, there's a very interesting experience I recall. So I was in Seattle and with my former business mentor, and we were sitting and having a conversation. And there was this guy who works for Boeing, and we got into conversation. And he asked me, "What do you do?" And I told him, "Well, I teach meditation." And so he said, "Oh wow, that's nice because I also use this app. It's a very prominent app." And he said, I asked him, how does it make you feel? Well, he said it's a quick fix, for sure. Whenever I feel helpless, I feel lonely or whatever is going on, I just come to this app and it gives me a quick fix and it's okay. And so I asked him, how long have you been using it? He said 5 years now. I said, well, it must be great, great for the company because 5 years you're paying them and you are still there. So what happens if they decide to, 10x the monthly subscription, or whatever happens if the company shuts down? How do you feel? I said, I never asked that question. So I guess people have seen that. People have tried apps and people have tried boards and whatnot. Those are all fine. I mean, nothing can replace human emotion and human connection. But what people have also realized is they are not looking for shortcuts anymore. They're not looking for apps or bots or just a quick fix. People are looking for something profound. And in particular, young adults and people in leadership, they want something much more profound. So, to answer your question, spiritual disconnect is not obvious to a lot of people. They don't know if they need this, they don't know if this is the solution. But once they explore, people realize that this is much more profound and impactful, not as a solution, but as something that fundamentally should have been there. We should have been in touch with our spiritual life as well. And it's not an option, it's not a skill to build. So, yes, a lot of young adults are now exploring spirituality, leaders for sure. Organizations are, to my surprise, I was reading an article, organizations are now giving priority to spiritual wellness, using spirituality as the means and a better alternative to well-being, quick well-being solutions. Yeah.
I wanted to something that you mentioned about the young adults, and
Yeah.
you had mentioned some of them connecting to AI because we all know AI is advancing rather quickly
Yeah.
these days. And you see a lot of avatars and characters being built for people to connect with these AI bots, chat bots. And we see in the news how devastating that could be, because people are choosing to connect with these chatbots rather than people, and oftentimes in very young generations, because with these younger generations that had to spend quite a few years, very crucial years growing up through the pandemic, didn't quite have a level of socialization or organic connection through crucial years of their life. What are your thoughts on that? You mentioned that younger adults are facing more spiritual growth, but we also see the disconnect of wanting to connect with social media or AI. How do you think with this divide that there's so many that are exploring, that are moving away, but yet we have some that are moving towards it? How do we kind of come back to that medium?
Well, not everybody is on the same boat. So there are young people, there are people who've tried these apps and who've tried even AI partners, AI girlfriends and AI boyfriends, and even romantic relationships,
Yes.
because it it comes with convenience. And I'm not against AI. I use it when I have to make my life easier, my work easier. Excuse me. But there are AI is perfect. If you are given a choice that given an AI companion and a real human being, choosing him or her as a companion, if you see, it does not need hard work. It is a perfect relationship. You don't have to get into arguments. It's very easy. You don't have to please somebody. You don't have to work. You don't have to have patience and none of that. So, and that's the catch. That's the attraction in the beginning, that it does not come with all the challenges that a real connection comes with, a real human to human. So people fall, people get attracted towards that. But then over time, human mind is not supposed to, we don't appreciate what we don't fight for, what we haven't worked for. So over time, it begins to feel a little bit too easy and a little bit boring. So there is a divide for sure. There are people who are still exploring that. But the challenge is those who've tried and those who have found that this is not for them, this is nowhere near the real connection. And it can never be, because as advanced as AI can be, one thing it can never do is replace the real human imperfection, the energy that we feel. And because my work is more focused on spirituality, then obviously energy is everything that is specific to a human connection that we feel, the aura we feel. So the divide comes from various things. One is those who have not worked on their social muscle, those who have not worked on one very crucial element of their character, that is resilience, would kind of retreat back to the most convenient option. And in this case, it's AI. You just log in and you have a conversation. And actually, there is an AI avatar that's making millions every week just by charging people $1 a minute, and people are having conversations. It's very realistic. But and then there are the other kind who have that resilience. Just one little thing can change so much. They have that resilience and they see, okay, this is not for me. I am willing to take that risk. I am willing to instill that courage in me and work for my work towards better life. So then they find that, okay, shortcuts don't work, and they're not looking for AI bots. They're not looking for quick fixes. Spirituality becomes the only option then. And when I use the word spirituality, I do not ever teach people that you have to abandon your present life. You have to make sacrifices. Truly what it means is the universe, the creator, energy, God, whatever you want to call that. Spirituality is, in my definition, means that universal energy experiencing itself through you. That's spirituality. Living in complete wholeness in whatever you are doing. You are in construction, you are in finance, wherever you are living your life in wholeness. Wholeness meaning feeling that connection with the universe. And it takes time, it takes hard work, because you have to practice, you have to be consistent, but it is nowhere to be compared with the quick fixes. So people who realize that, they know that this is the only thing that has lasting, profound, and more realistic experience to it. Nothing else can come closer.
I want to go back to something you also mentioned, that we said we see loneliness in the younger generation, but we also see loneliness in leadership. People of power or influence. So how common is it that we see loneliness in people of these positions?
Well, it's pretty common, and I think I was reading somewhere 70% of new leaders, CEOs in particular, they feel lonely. And the biggest reason behind their loneliness is decision making. As one industrialist who I admire a lot, Sir Ratan Tata, he once said that the higher you grow in your career, the lonelier your decisions become. And it is as true as anything can be, because your decisions then have the potential to impact millions of lives, hundreds of lives, or billions of dollars. Just one decision. So all that pressure comes to a leader, and so there's nothing less than perfection is expected from a leader. So that pressure builds up, and I guess, I mean, yes, there are perks, there are elements that are super beneficial: money, power, titles, and all of that. But there is a dark side also, that
Yes.
a lot of leaders don't get to share with the world. They don't get to have a conversation with somebody. I'm not saying all, but most of them, that hey, I feel like I'm wearing a mask all the time, and I don't get to choose the mask I have to wear. Other people they lay their expectations on me that today I have to wear a mask of a courageous leader because of whatever the company needs, whatever decisions need to be made. Today it's something else. Today people are looking for inspiration, even if I don't have that within me today. So decision making, and then another thing is imposter syndrome is quite common. Having that sense of self-doubt and say, am I really worth this position, this power, this responsibility? So this is actually one of the reasons we chose this title. So within Anta we have a title, as you already know, Compassionate Buddy. But for those who are watching, so we chose this title because not everybody needs a therapist. Not everybody has the luxury of finding a friend who they can share everything with and not worry about insecurities and anything else. So we've tried with some leaders, and this works wonders. Why? Because they can always find that space, and it's like one person said, a compassionate buddy, what it means to me is something I should have had right from the beginning. So yeah, it's a pretty difficult situation for the leaders. It's growing, by the way.
Yeah, I could definitely see how, they say, like, it's lonely at the top, right? You see a lot of people that are in positions of power and decision making, that they see it as a sign of weakness to be emotionally honest, or to show what they perceive as weakness,
Yeah.
and to not open up because they want to create this image for themselves. And you don't see it that they would even open up with close friends and partners, especially people in the profession, if they are colleagues, employees, or anything of that nature. And it really is kind of, whether it's internal or external pressure of holding it together and creating this perfect image of themselves, seeing, always being strong. So
Yeah.
how would you suggest somebody start to open up and become more emotionally honest? And to, do you think ego and identity come into play with this? And how would they kind of drop that mask, start removing it, and saying, hey, I am human, and I am not perfect?
Well, it's easier said than done, for sure. Why? Because a leader in an aviation firm will have unique challenges than a leader in a finance uh, corporate, or in some other industry, maybe biotech or something else. They have their unique set of challenges and their life. We cannot claim to understand that we know their lives. We don't. Only that individual knows what he or she has gone through in order to build that empire that they have built, or achieve what they have. But what's important is, at least to me, is not try to claim that we understand what, how it's like, how it must be. We can't. Second is, I don't think we need to change what happens, and we can't change what happens within their work lives. We don't have that power, and it's not even possible. So what I think is the best solution, but the best approach, I think, is to give these people, wherever they are, it's not just the leaders, it's the celebrities, it's people in politics, people in different various positions.
Mm-hmm.
Give people that space that is just theirs. Nobody is allowed in that space. And that's what this whole idea was, and this the title of Compassion Buddy, that was the whole idea, that this is such a secure space, that's such a private place for you to be vulnerable, to show that you are a human, to show your imperfections, to shed off all your mask and don't worry about a thing, not worry about confidentiality or anything or a judgment. No matter how powerful we are, how much money we've made, or what organization, how many people report to us, at the end of the day, we are all humans. And if we begin to realize that I am not allowed to do that, what we are doing is we are running against the clock until there comes a time when we feel full, exhausted, and don't have a space to process anything new, because we have not yet touched on that human imperfection. We've not expressed that to other people, that yes, I also feel scared, I also feel lonely, I also have a vulnerable side, maybe a dark side, I have weaknesses, all of that. And I'm actually a compassionate buddy to somebody in that position. And the beauty of that is, well, I don't mention that to anybody. You don't have to. And that's the whole point, actually. So anybody who's in that space, one, I think first priority should be given to somebody you already have in your life. It could be in your family, it could be in your relations, or in your social life. But not everybody has that luxury. So that should always be their first priority, if they have that luxury, to have somebody in that space who meets these these few requisites. One, confidential. Two,
Mm-hmm.
has the time for you, right? When you need somebody, when you are going through, you're about to make a decision, you need to speak with somebody now and say, okay, am I making that? I feel scared, right? So that individual should have time for you. Third thing is accept you as who you are. Look at your vulnerabilities as completely normal. Your weaknesses, whatever you have, we all have them. Accept them as they are. So that's, I think, that's the kind of space people need. Another thing that's we usually confuse these things is my social loneliness getting spilled over in my professional life, or is my professional workplace loneliness, as Dr. Vivek Murthy, the Surgeon General, he described in his book as well, together, is my workplace loneliness is actually a term? Is my loneliness from workplace, from my position, from my title, getting spilled over in my social life or in my personal life? We don't know that, which one is affecting which. But at the end of the day, there is burnout, there is anxiety, there is physical health consequences. There's so much more. So it's a very sensitive state, to be very sensitive and very disabling also. Like you feel like your hands are tied. You feel like you want to share. And there are days, particularly for startup founders who are still struggling, who are still aspiring, the organization, I mean, they have an image, they have a vision. Every day we feel like, because I've been in that space, every day we feel like today is the day I want to give up. But at the end of the day, or when I see other people who are working in my team, working with me, and say, what do I tell these people? They are planning their lives based on the hopes they have from me as a leader. Somebody's getting married, somebody's buying home, somebody's planning something, and they discuss their career. So they discuss, this is the idea I want to implement. What am I going to tell these people? So it is always me who has to make that compromise and say, okay, one more day, come on.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess just find that person, and if you don't, find us. Yeah, that's why we exist today.
And does that exist in your life? You said you're a compassionate buddy to someone else, but as a founder, a leader, spiritual guide, and a person of influence yourself, you must have certain challenges of this topic. And how do you navigate it yourself? And what might be some of your challenges?
Well, I don't have a compassionate buddy. I wish I had, but what happened was, this whole idea, this whole experience, this led me to something much more profound. Something that that we teach and we give that experience, the Divine Union Retreat. That is when you are tired, or once you've exhausted your search in the world around you, looking for that companion, that support, and that individual, you don't have a choice, you turn inward. And so I did try that in the world around. I could not find that, because I was meant to find something much more profound. And this path is not for everybody, where I eventually landed. But what I found and what I learned was, this happened years ago when I was still in the monastery. This is why I call it the divine union, because I was able to experience that divine within me. So now, yes, having a compassionate buddy is great. Say if you are my compassionate buddy, but you also have your life, you also have your challenges. I found that there's one companion that always there, and when I found that true self and that divine experience within me, I have a companionship in all the humility that I can access anytime. That's with me all the time, awake when I am, available when I need, and it's beautiful. for those who want to go the extra mile and tap into the divine side of theirs. But for those leaders and everybody, yeah, it's not an option. We need that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you? Like you mentioned the other day when we were having this conversation, you had these experiences in your life. Like, what is your reflection?
Yes, absolutely. I think, especially as you get older, um, we find that some of the social connections that we have, we drift apart. You start to discover more of who you are and more of who you aren't. And I think sometimes friendships come and go. And, a lot of times within workplaces, we befriend our colleagues, and that also comes and goes. And I do find that with age and with time, that we need to seek out more purposeful connections. And I think because many of us are so accustomed to already having that in youth, either through, especially from things like school, that's the
Yeah.
majority of how we all develop friendships in our youth, that we have classmates, people that we grow up with. But we realize if we want deeper connection, maybe those people that we've had for lifetime friendships maybe perhaps aren't it. And so as you start navigating like who you are, you also question who these people are. And I think that could be a very challenging time, and I've definitely experienced it myself. And I really do think learning more about yourself and realizing this is my life, this is the only thing I could potentially control, and anything with others you cannot. And you have to have that separation of, I'm not going to take this personally.
Yeah.
I love you and I'm going to let you go. We may have
Mm.
differences and there might be some sort of resentment, but in the end, I think you could just say, it's just not for me. I let you go. Um, and I think it takes a lot of inward journey and to come to this realization.
Yeah.
So I think oftentimes loneliness I think loneliness, you'll find, the more you find yourself, you realize you're not alone. But I guess with that being said, how would you describe the difference of being alone and loneliness?
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I guess, day and night, black and white.
Mm-hmm.
I would go even one step further. So, if we are lonely, um,
Mm-hmm.
experiencing loneliness, a lot of people kind of get confused between being alone and lonely. Um, Loneliness is an experience, is a state of feeling something, the absence of people that you don't have, you cannot have. And that could be, and I always say this begins with yourself. So loneliness to me is the absence of self from yourself.
Mm-hmm.
In those cases when you don't know who is the source, where is this coming from. So people may feel lonely if they move to a new country, or losing a loved one, or ending a relationship, or a parent, or even growing up as a single child. All those situations we know, right? We know the source, that if I am missing a romantic partner and I have a partner, I will stop feeling lonely. I will feel that, okay, I am fulfilled, or I don't feel lonely anymore. But the kind that is not one of these situations, it always begins with the absence of yourself. The question about who are we, who am I, the fundamental question. And the goal should be to find that companion within self, which is you. I always say, we all need a teacher to find our own teacher within. And if you're lucky, you will find a teacher. If you work for it, you are worthy of having a teacher, you should find one. You will actually. And then the goal of a teacher who's kind and compassionate to you should be to help you find your own teacher, because we all have that. You all have that innate wisdom. We all have. There are people who've not read books, who've not gone to schools, and they have all the wisdom that is not matched in the world. So we do have that within. Um, it was, as you were mentioning your experience, there was something that came to my mind. It was some individual asked me that, what is your vision for the organization? And I get that question quite often. And so yeah, I tell people that we are not some revolutionary idea. We are not some change the world kind of an idea. We exist because people need us. It's an unfortunate situation in the world around that companies like us need to exist. Yes, if people want to enhance their spiritual life and get that, fine. But not just us having a minister for loneliness and having so much, despite having 8 billion people on this planet. But then, so that's not so good part. The good part is we get to be each other's companion at work. Like you and I, we have these conversations. Not all the time. We don't always talk about, okay, we're gonna plan this and do that and do this. We get to experience that within the team. We get to experience, okay, how was your day? What happened today? How are you feeling? Or sometime, I've had people in the past, even now, we just don't even talk about work, and we say, okay, tell me what's going on. Forget about work. So we get to experience that within the organization before anybody else does that. And I think that's a beautiful experience, because we are not some startup, we are not some company, or we don't have $1 billion goal. We have 1 billion people goal. So I guess we exist because people need us.
Yeah.
That's the simple answer.
How would you encourage, or what suggestions and tips would you provide that you think other organizations or leadership teams can create that culture of vulnerability and connection, that we stand by and curate ourselves?
I think it has to start from the top. When the leader who has the decision-making authority experiences that people, it's not just about keeping people employable by introducing well-being programs or quick meditation sessions. It has to be the culture, and you cannot enforce culture. Culture is built with an inclusion of people when people participate. So it begins with that, and that's why when I work with leaders, I tell them that don't worry about how your organization today is navigating the challenge, and say people are leaving, attrition is high, people feel burnout. Don't worry about that, because you don't need a well-being plan. You don't need an app to fix that. All you need is yourself having that experience, and it will flow down from you to the next immediate individual who reports to you. So it's an experiential approach. So the best way is to have that experience yourself and let it flow from the next person. Let that person be in that position responsible to carry forward that culture, the culture of meaning, the culture of not just having people for better productivity or greater productivity, but actually have meaningful connections and actually have conversation. I always ask people, hey, when was the last time you spoke with somebody and said, hey, let's meet, and without an agenda, let's have lunch with no agenda. Let's just meet. Let's just take a break, or at work if you are, or if you're in university, let's just take a break and sit down in silence, or not have an agenda. Just experience that human connection. I guess it has a profound impact.
Yeah. So what are maybe just a couple daily or spiritual practices that you could suggest for people out there that are just to get started, that do not have much experience tapping into themselves, tapping into the spirituality, acknowledging the loneliness that they have? What are some foundational practices that they could build and start with?
Well, so one question that I get from a lot of people is, I am confused. I don't know what question to ask. So the absence of the right question itself is a challenge. So I invite people to accept that you don't know. If you don't know it, you don't know it. It's all right to navigate through confusion, but what's far more important is to let your ego dissolve and accept that you know nothing. We don't. That's when the learning, knowing. If you don't have room for knowing, you cannot know. If you don't have room for growth, you will not grow. So accept that I am in that space where I have much to learn, but I don't know it enough. I have much to explore of myself. My story is much more than what it is perceived. I am beyond titles. I am beyond what the world perceives me, but also have very, I'd say, ego is the enemy of spiritual growth. As long as ego is there, as long as the I is there, you will not grow. So I wish there was a quick tip. There are no quick tips in your spiritual life. I guess there's just one acceptance and acknowledgement that we are far more than what we think we are. We are far more valuable. We are far more capable. We are far more worthy. We are far more pleasant or courageous than we perceive. It's, if at all it makes a difference, I think I'm going to wrap up with that, is accept that invitation to explore how much more you are. Allow yourself to accept that, okay, I want to explore how much of me there is inside us. Yeah.
Thank you. That's very, we have to start somewhere, right? We have to start
Yes.
somewhere. These are challenges that face all of us, whether we show it or not. Again, like with leaders, a lot of people, we hide everything. We put on the mask. And I think if we start acknowledging more the challenge that we have around us, within us, I think we're gonna get there. We're gonna start growing as a human race.
Yes.
So thank you so much for your words of wisdom today. Is there any final words that you would like to tell our audience?
Yeah. Glad that you asked. I was about to say, for leaders, we confuse our life, the work we do in the world, with our own identity, or we confuse that the greatest challenge we have in pursuing a life of wholeness and living fully, completely, is the illusion of I have it all. That is your greatest enemy. The moment you let go of that notion that you don't have it all and that's not all there is to live, to experience, to know, to feel, you would open yourself to greater possibilities. Your work life, my work life, our work lives are a medium. We are playing a role today. The next role is going to be different. The next role is not going to be about the titles once we move past this. Somebody else is going to replace us. Who is it that we are going to become? So I always tell people, strive to become someone over becoming something. If you become something today, that's going to go away. It's very fragile. So become someone that's unshakable. That's all of you.
Yeah.
I don't know. I
Well,
don't know
thank
what
you
else
again.
can I say. Yeah, but I always focus on experience, then quotes and wisdom and advice. I don't think I have advice to give people. I just want people to experience how it is to be like you, whole. Just experience that, and yeah, you don't need wisdom.
Yeah, wonderful. All right. Well, I feel like, especially with anybody that is in any sort of leadership role that is struggling, I would encourage you to visit our website, because Sitender will be offering spiritual guidance for visionary leaders, because again, it can be lonely at the top. And so, I would highly encourage looking into this, a personal one-on-one with him. And we do have our retreats. That is a great way for people. Our retreats are in our online platforms for people to be able to connect, but we will continue discussions on our podcasts. And so look out for, new topics that we will be exploring. And I think it will really just be able to touch into, we have a topic for everybody, right? So thank you again, everybody, for tuning in, and catch us next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.